Okay, welcome everybody. It is 6:01 on 10/29, and the purpose of this meeting is to conduct a public hearing on the 2021 budget, as well as a few items on the regular agenda as well. So I'm opening the public hearing. Notice is hereby given the preliminary Town of Canton 2021 budget for the fiscal year beginning January 1 of 2021 has been completed and filed in the office of Town Clerk at 60 Main Street, Canton, New York. It is available for inspection by any person during regular office hours. Further notice is hereby given that the Town Board will meet and review the budget and hold a public hearing thereon at the Municipal Building on Thursday, October 29, 2021 at 6 p.m. and that at such hearing, any person may be heard through Zoom. The proposed salaries of the town elected officials are hereby specified as follows. Supervisor, $15,853. Council members, and there are 4 council members at $5,442 each. Highway superintendent, $62,500. Town clerk, $42,681. Town justice, and there are 2 town justices at $29,297 each. Before we entertain public comment, I would just like to say that the preliminary 2021 budget appropriations are $2,840,431 compared to the 2020 budget at $2,838,998, and we are remaining under the tax cap. The amount to be raised by taxes is $1,084,164, resulting in a proposed tax rate change of $2.70 per thousand to $2.7943 per thousand. The total taxable assessed property is $387,990,588 in comparison to last year at $384,008,717. So I would just like to say it's been a very challenging year putting together this budget due to the negative impact that COVID has placed on all of us. I couldn't be more proud at the due diligence of our departments, each employee, and the town board, and how we came together as a team. We deliberated, we made changes. It was a very healthy process, but a challenging one in my view. The pandemic did impact this year's state revenues and court revenues, resulting in close to $100,000 in loss to date. That's a lot. And the town board examined every line item in every department. We're dealing with rising costs, contractual obligations, and departmental needs. And these are projected revenues, and nothing is guaranteed, as we found out this year. It should be noted that there are no pay increases for town elected officials. That it is proposed non-contractual employees will receive a 1% pay increase, and contractual employees, our highway contractor, will receive 2.5% increase. The proposed increase in highway appropriations for construction went from $372,600 to $375,000. Fire protection stayed the same at a total of $275,000, with Pirates, Morley, and Rensselaer Falls Fire Departments proposing to get an additional $5,768 each. Recreation is going to be continued to be discussed at our next joint town and village board meeting. So with that being said, I am opening up the public hearing for comment. Is there anybody that would like to say something? We're here to listen. Okay, would any board members like to add anything?
I would just like to thank the supervisor and her staff and the folks at Gray and Gray for all the work they put in behind the scenes to get us to where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Well, with that being said, we might want to wait another minute to see if anyone signs in. Heidi, are you seeing anyone?
No, there's no one in the waiting room.
Okay. We do have on the agenda to consider and discuss the passage of the budget, but I wanted to let the board know before we pass a budget, I am mandated by law to submit the tax cap form before the budget is passed. So my recommendation will be that we wait until the November meeting to look at that. This will give us a window for me to be able to do that. So with that being said, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Jim?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Carrie? All right, now I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:08 p.m. The first item is discussion of health insurance contributions. So the committee has met and we've discussed this about some proposed recommendations about the current health insurance contributions. And we have 4 silos, right? We have the contractual agreement that's already set for 2021. That's a negotiated item and that's already set as to how much those employees will be contributing to the health insurance. We have non-contractual employees and they're under the non-contractual policy. And that is currently at 20% contribution towards their health insurance. So there's 4 full-time employees that are under that policy. We have our retirees. There's 12 individuals that are impacted, receive the health insurance. And the contribution rate is anywhere between 26 and 48%, dependent upon the former retiree. And then we have 2 elected officials positions that are deemed full-time. That is the town clerk position and the highway superintendent position. So we know contractual, that's set. So that silo is to the side, right? Is our recommendation that the non-contractual policy be amended from 20% to 25% contribution rate. My thinking is that we should take this one at a time for discussion. Does anybody have any questions of Jim and I regarding that recommendation? And Jim, if you have anything to add, please do so.
I don't have anything. No.
Okay. So what needs to happen is after our discussion tonight, we will have to put together the results of our decision as a resolution for next month's meeting. So as far as the elected officials, our recommendation is the following. For the town clerk position, we recommend that the town clerk follow the non-contractual policy as far as health insurance contribution. So that would be in 2021, a contribution of 25% if the board chooses to change that at this time. As far as the highway superintendent position, that would follow the contract that we have with the employees. And so that's a set rate, again, for 2021. So that is our recommendation for those two positions, is that they're under those two written documents as far as health insurance contribution. As far as retirees, the retirees 3 years ago were paying an equated amount of 25% of the policy at that time. We have not increased it in the past 3 years. It has been flatlined at the same amount for the last 3 years. It's not a percentage, it was a flat line. And so this board, we need to consider how you want to move forward with our retirees. I need to remind the board that under the state audit, it was an item that highway employees were not charged the amount of the contract when they retired at the time, which was 50%. So that is out there. And as you know, for our audit, we need to continue to do what we said we would do as far as a corrective action plan. So we need to look at that.
Is there a recommendation on the retirees from the committee?
The recommendation, and Jim, again, pipe in if I misspeak, but we feel that it should be standard across the board at 35% of the premium. However, we have put in a call to our legal counsels because we did have one specific question, and we expect to discuss that with them next week. Jim, is there anything that I'm missing?
No, that's, to me, I think we need to move in a direction where everybody that's an employee for the town of Canton gets treated the same, even in retirement. And you know, times change, and we have to adjust along the way. And so I don't think it's good policy to be all over the board on what we do in terms of health insurance. I understand we have a contractual agreement, and it is my hope that as we deal with contractual arrangements, that whenever we work on a new contract, that once the contract is done, we also review our non-contract policy so that they don't get, you know, a long ways apart. As far as current employee, yes, if we go to 25 for the non-contract people, it is going to be a little higher than what it is for the contractual, but the contract is up in next year. So we will be dealing with that. We'll be dealing with that next year. When it comes to retirees, I don't think it should matter whether it's a contractual or a non-contractual, that I feel that the retirees, it just makes life a whole lot simpler for everybody that that it's kept on the same plane. I mean, let's be truthful here. We've got a highway employee that's retiring, or he will be. I mean, he's off. He isn't working there anymore, and he's gone. But he is going to be paying at a higher rate in retirement than people that have been retired for 40 years. I think we need to get us into a position where we treat everybody equally. So by, I think going from what we're currently at to 35% for retirees is a step in the right direction. But I don't know if it would bother me that much. I did it once before, and it cost me, but being's what it may. I understand that there's sentiment there that, we don't need to do this all at once. And so if we're going from 25 to 35, so be it.
And I would also like to add that this is a supplemental plan that we are providing for our retirees that are Medicare eligible. So should a retiree not want to pay the additional, they're more than welcome to go to the open market and search for other supplemental plans. But for the town to pay 65% of a high quality health insurance plan, I think is very reasonable with this. But Keith and I are going to be meeting with our two legal counsels on one technical question, and we'll bring that back.
I like your reasoning. And Mary Ann, you started out with saying there were 4 silos, and Jim expressed the goal of trying to create parity amongst everyone. So why don't we go from 4 silos to 3 silos? I don't see why the elected highway superintendent should, being a non-contract position, would follow the benefit of the contract. I understand about days off and things like that and schedule. It makes sense for their schedules to sync with the contracted employees, but the highway superintendent is an elected position. It's non-contractual, and I don't see why they should benefit. If the clerk's position is tied to the non-contract, I think the elected highway superintendent as a non-contract position should also be part of the non-contract thinking. So let's get it down to 3 silos, in other words. Current non-contractual, which would also cover the 2 elected positions, the contract employees, retirees, 3 silos, as opposed to still keeping 4 silos. Because we're creating a 4th silo just for the highway superintendent.
No, it was our recommended that the highway superintendent follow the highway contract.
Yeah, yes, but they're not. But they aren't in the union, so I don't see why they would realize the benefits of the union when nobody else that's not in the union is realizing those same benefits. So I would suggest that the clerk and the highway superintendent still fall under the non-contractual and keep the contract employees to the people who are actually in the contract. The highway superintendent is not in the contract. So, because what it'll do is it'll create parity amongst the 2 elected officials. And I don't see why we would be creating 2 separate or continuing along 2 separate paths for those positions when the goal is to create parity.
And so just so it's clear from the committee, it's just for the health insurance contribution at this time. And then we need to look at the retirement language of the non-contract as well.
Sure, but the way it was just explained, we would continue to have 4 different categories, and And I realize you're having the elected highway superintendent follow the contract, but they're not part of the contract.
Right.
So why should they get the benefit of the contract when the clerk doesn't?
Well, the clerk position would get the benefit of the non-policy or the non-contract policy, right? So
Yeah,
I think legally what we need to do is we need to have a separate resolution for the elected officials framework that we're developing, right?
Right, which is why we have, sorry, we should have one resolution for both elected officials, and they should follow the non-contract policy.
that's my opinion. Also,
Rather than, because the way it's, you have two
Right.
separate resolutions, one for highway and one for clerk, and it doesn't make sense to treat them differently.
So Tim, what you're saying is you're in agreement with Bob as far as putting those two elected positions on to follow the non-contract health insurance contribution.
For purposes of health insurance contributions, I think we can have one policy that covers non-contract employees and full-time elected officials.
yeah, and I agree. And I think it's okay to, when we set hours or days of the week work, that there should be some synchronicity between the highway superintendent and the contract employees. But that's only so that they're working together. But I think when it comes to insurance, I see no reason why they should be treated separate. Why the highway superintendent should get the benefit of the contract.
Karen, I saw you nodding.
I agree.
All right. Jim, did you want to add anything?
Nope, I've said my say and I'm going to stick by my say. I just feel that the town clerk works in the environment with the non-contract people. To me, it's just, they're non-contract people. I only see there's two separate entities here. There's the non-contract, which would include the town clerk, and there's contract, which would include the highway superintendent. The highway superintendent works a different schedule than the town clerk. He's meant to be a 40-hour a week person, where town clerks is a 35 or whatever it is. It's not the same, and that's why my thinking is it seems simpler to have the one follow the non-contract, basically the municipal building. This is how they're insured. Highway department, this is how they're insured, and that highway department includes that highway superintendent.
What?
We just put a highway superintendent into a new position. We told him what we were going to pay him for a salary, and now we're going to increase his contribution for health insurance by 5%. So basically, we're going to bite into what we just give him. But if that's the feeling, it sounds like I'm outvoted on this one, but I'm going to stick by my feeling that highway, this is highway, this is municipal building. To me, there's the two silos, if that's what you want to call them. And I'm going to stick by that.
The problem, I appreciate that, Jim, but the problem I see that arises, excuse me, is that the terms of the highway superintendent don't follow the same terms, meaning when the contract is good for expires with the highway superintendent. So we'd be advertising for an elected highway superintendent. Let's just say, for the sake of conversation, we advertise, or they're up for reelection. They get elected, the contract changes for the union shop. Are we then going to adjust the benefits in the middle of the term for the highway superintendent? Our policy has always been they're elected under a certain set of conditions, and those conditions exist for the entire term.
But we give them pay raises, year after year after year, and I would think that the highway superintendent would understand that when the contract's negotiated and it's all said and done, that their insurance is going to change. But I think the one thing that the highway superintendent probably is going to know, it's going to be a better deal than the non-contract policy, because normally it is. It's just the way it is. I mean, if there isn't an incentive for these people to be paying dues and being part of a union, what's the sense in them paying their dues and being part of a union, other than, well, it's got job protection. But you really, the only thing I can see is they have a little bit better deal on health insurance than but the highway superintendent that we got right now just come out of the union. And so, I mean, that person knows what it's all about. But I mean,
And we've already agreed to him.
no, we haven't agreed. We
We haven't agreed to anything. I mean, he's an interim appointment.
Right.
No. And I mean, if I mean, we can do this, and if he isn't happy about it, then that's, we're not in the business of trying to keep everybody happy. But if the 5% bothers him enough, well, then he won't run for election. But and this, to me, this doesn't have anything to do with election. I'm just thinking that, like you said, Bob, we got 4 different silos. To me, this is the highway barn. This is how these people are treated when it comes to health insurance. This is municipal building. This is how these people. So then we're going to say, well, don't forget, because we got the non-contractual elected highway superintendent over highway. He's got to be over here with this group. I just thought it was simpler to run 2 claims, but
I mean, it's only on paper that they're over there. They're not, in my opinion, they don't, the elected highway superintendent doesn't pay dues. They don't have the privileges of being in the union, or the protections of being in the union. As a matter of fact, once elected, they don't even have to show back up for work. So what I see is it just sends the wrong message, I think, to the rest of the staff and to the clerk's office, that we arbitrarily are making that decision to maintain the 4 silos. And I don't know, it just seems the elected should be on the same page. And yeah, anyways.
Well, it underscores the goal to get everybody on the same page. We're not that big an operation. And we're not that far off in terms of our percentages. So it underscores the goal to try and get all our employees on the same percentage.
With one person, by one person?
No, the long-term goal to line up the contract and the non-contract policies.
They'll never line up. We know they'll never line up. I mean, when we come to negotiations, and again, they're in, to me, we negotiate a contract and then we try to align the non-contracts with that. But there's difference between negotiated and not negotiated. But now the possibility of ever lining these 2 entities up, I think, are slim to none. And so this is an issue. It isn't an issue over, I don't think, over 2 silos or 4. I think it's an issue over 1 position, just 1 position. All we're talking about here is the highway superintendent. And if the feeling of the board is that the highway superintendent should be over in this section, then that's the way it'll be. I understand when the vote comes, the vote will be what it is. I'm
interested in thinking about it a little more. This isn't, there's persuasive arguments on both sides of this. So
I do need to remind the board that we do have a letter to the highway superintendent that he will be covered under 2021 following the same contract amount, the labor contract amount. So I need to remind the board of that. Okay, so I agree with Jim. This was a committee recommendation, and to me, it's cleaner. It would be a separate resolution for the health insurance. and the retirement piece of it.
So you guys know more about contracts than I do. Is there a chance that the depending upon how, we have a contract right now that doesn't offer any insurance in retirement in our current contract for anybody who's hired now, let's say. Is there a scenario by which, hypothetically, that the union could bargain away the health insurance for the highway superintendent? Hypothetically.
How can they bargain it away?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Is there a way that they can undermine the contribution or, be willing to get a raise and give up some health insurance, let's say? Maybe they bargain for something at the expense of their health insurance if they feel they don't need this or that. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical.
Well, if I was a member of the union and my health insurance was important to me, the last thing I'm going to do is bargain away anything to undermine an individual. But, and going back to what you said, of course, I guess I can't talk about it because that would get me into bargaining a union agreement here in public, and I don't want to do that. I can't do that.
Fair enough.
There's an issue that you spoke to that would have to be talked about in a negotiation settings rather than the setting.
Fair enough.
I appreciate the reminder that this was covered in our letter. So I guess I'm fine leaving it tied to the contract policy for calendar year 2021, but given that the position is up for election next year, to then tie both elected full-time positions together with the
and that makes more sense.
Contract policy.
And that makes more sense because, like I said, going into an election, we got the ability to do things that, we can say, you're running for this position, but here's what it's going to pay. Here's what the benefits are, so that they know that before they run for it.
And that's exactly where I'm at. I'm not trying to hurry up and change that for our interim position for the highway superintendent. I was thinking bigger picture down the road of creating the parity that we all say we're after. So I'm good.
Okay, so I'm going to try to recap this. So is the board in agreement that the non-contractual employees are increased from 20 to 25%?
Yes.
Yes,
Karen, Jim, Tim?
I said yes.
Okay, Tim?
Yep.
Okay, so that one's done. Okay, so like I said, Jim and I are meeting with council next week. We have one technical question we need to converse with them, so we can we'll report back on the retirees as soon as we talk to them about the one question. And am I correct in hearing that at this time, the town clerk will follow the non-contract policy for 2021? And we already have the highway superintendent set for 2021.
Yes. I'm in agreement with all of the committee recommendations.
Okay,
For the sake of expediency.
okay, so a draft resolution will be created and then we'll go from there. Anything else on health insurance contributions? Okay, the next item on the agenda is consider and discuss passage of the 2021 budget. And as I mentioned earlier, before we pass a budget, I need to submit our tax cap form. And I would recommend that we table this to our November meeting.
I thought that was our plan all along, to have the public hearing and then plan schedule for passage at the regular meeting.
We discussed it, so that's why I put it on the agenda so that we have it on record that that's what we're going to do as well. Okay, so it will be put on the agenda for next month. All right, so Heidi, how you doing?
I'm good.
Okay. I need a motion to go into executive session for purposes of matters pertaining to a particular employment history of a particular person.
So move.
Moved by Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Before I say all in favor, thank you everybody for coming. And Heidi, you'll be turning that over to, is it Karen? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you,
So make sure.
everyone. Good night. John, thank you. All right, it is 7:37 on 10:29. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. All right, everybody. Good
Have a
night.
good night.
Thank you.
Toodles.
Bye.